Welcome to the next episode of The Category Mistake. I'm your host, Richard Mariello, and I am posting this late. 2 days late, actually. It's kind of Halloween weekend got away from me and got so busy I just ran out of time, which I know some of you did. Some of you, probably have never had that issue on Halloween, but I don't even have kids at home. But we did an event, and it was went from a couple hours to a 2-day excursion. So today I'm going to talk about something that I used to be very, very passionate for, and I'm still passionate about, but in a different way. Sports. Growing up, sports is something that you would think either, was loving or I loved or my parents loved or a little of everything. But really it was an excuse to be quiet in our house for 2 hours at a time. I grew up in a household where we loved certain sports, only certain sports, certain teams. The Celtics. My mother would actually pray at church. She would ask for prayer for the Celtics on a Sunday, just out of the blue. It was crazy. I remember going over to one of my mother's friend's house to watch the 1986 Super Bowl between the Bears and the Patriots. We watched sports, and that was what we were doing. There was no middleman. That's what we did on a Sunday. My mom would work Monday through Friday, sometimes more. But on Sundays for like 2 to 3 hours, if it was a Celtics game or a Patriots game, or really the Red Sox, not much on TV, but those two, and then Notre Dame football once in a while, on a Saturday, we would stop everything and watch them. And that was kind of like what we did. We didn't talk about it. We didn't I didn't learn all my sports lingo from my parents. They were definitely players that I liked, like a lot of people in the 80s, Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish for the Celtics. Of course, there was Steve Grogan, and then Irving Fryer and Andre Tippett for the Patriots. And what's weird is in Maine, where I live, back in that time, and still to this day, the Patriots would be blacked out. So a lot of times, the Giants would be what was on TV. So you had a lot of Giants fans because that was what was on TV. So I learned about the New York Giants and, Phil Simms and Jeff Hostetler and Lawrence Taylor and that group. But sports was not like what it is today in 2021. It wasn't about entertainment. It was honestly just about getting away from the craziness of the world as our family, because our family had a lot of stressors and a lot of anxiety. For that 2 hours, we didn't complain about it. We weren't even allowed to really talk. For those 2 hours, we were supposed to just, stay quiet. And that's kind of what we did. Growing up that way, I took sports as something as really, really important. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and that's okay. But what I did have is that 2 hours on a Sunday. So what started happening is that I became obsessed with the sports that my parents would watch, and then I started watching. I would stay up late and listen to the Red Sox on the radio. I would sneak down and watch from the stairwell sporting events on the TV in the living room after I was supposed to be in bed. It became addicting to me. And this happened all the way till I got married, and even after I got married. Sports was something that I had to see. I couldn't miss a Patriots game, even if it was my daughter's birthday. And that's actually the first time it hit me that it wasn't enjoyable for me. It was an addiction. So you say, well, that's kind of crazy. How can you be addicted to sports? I would watch every game, every minute of every game. And it was to a point where I wasn't enjoying it. I just knew I had to watch it. And I would be miserable watching it. And I wasn't just like superstitiously watching it. I wasn't just, watching it because it was my team. I would watch anything I could. And after a while, what you realize is you don't even know what you're watching. You just know you're watching something. Now, this really came to head for me in 2004. In 2004, the Red Sox made it to the World Series. Yeah. Well, they were down 3-0 to the Yankees. If you're from New England or a Red Sox or even a baseball fan, you kind of know the story. I was working at the time. I was working nights at the time, second shift. My wife, lover, she would watch the games for me. And every time she watched, she didn't watch game 1, 2, or 3. They lost. She watched game 4. They won. Watched game 5. They won. 6, 7. 1-1. She watched all 4 games of the World Series. They would sweep the World Series. So in a way, in my superstition, my wife helped the Red Sox win their first World Series. It was great. But then every time I watched a sporting event for a while, I would want my wife there. Well, my wife has other things to do. This is not something she enjoys. It's not something she's addicted to. And then I'd get cranky if they lost because she wasn't watching. And then, there'd be an argument over something so stupid as who was watching a football game or a baseball game or a basketball game or hockey, anything, you name it, if I had to watch it. And then later on, they started losing when she was watching, so I'd tell her not to watch. You're going to screw it up for me. And I got angry about it inside. And then it got to the point where I had to sit in the same spot on the couch, in the same seated position the entire game, because I was worried that they would lose if I wasn't sitting correctly. The problem with that, of course, is the older I've gotten, the worse my body is at sitting still for that long in a certain position, and I can't get back up. Crazy, huh? So I forced myself a lot of times to be in pain to enjoy, quote unquote, enjoy a sporting event for no reason other than if I didn't sit right, they were going to lose. Now, you would think I'm talking about this in past tense, so it's a long time ago and I've learned my ways and everything's good and no big deal. And I wish that was true. Up until about 4 weeks ago, this was me. I watched every game and I complained if I couldn't watch every game. I was just miserable if I missed it. And this season I've missed, I think, 3 games. Now, one time I was pumpkin picking with my grandchild and apple picking, and it was great, and I don't care at all. Another time, we had a harvest fest at our church, and, I was busy, and I saw like a few snippets of it. I watched the highlights afterwards. And another time, I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was just busy. The first one bothered me. By the third one, I'm like, you know what? It's okay. The world will keep spinning with or without me watching. I used to have to watch all 82 NBA games. Every Celtics game, if I could watch it, I had to watch it. And now I don't. Not because I don't like basketball. I love basketball. Players like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, the 80s, the 90s, even the 2000s with Kobe and Shaq and Paul Pierce, those guys. Love them. Love their style. A little wacky, a little different now than it used to be. I love the sport. But to contribute 170 hours plus of television time to that and be so absorbed with it to where I can't, I lose time with my wife or my kids or my grandkids. It just doesn't seem worth it to me anymore. Now, the watching of basketball and baseball and even hockey and other sporting events, that's been years in the making. I'm much better at that. Football is now my addicting sport. And maybe because that's only, 16, 17 games and the playoffs and yada, yada, yada. Maybe it's only once a week, and that's why, so there's not as many games. Basketball's 82, baseball's 162, hockey is 82. That's a lot of games compared to 16, 17. Also, they're on 3 or 4 times a week compared to once a week for football. So again, I can, in my mind, say, okay, I'm only doing it once. It's okay. It's okay. I don't know why it's so addicting to me. And that's something I've struggled with my whole life, is addiction. And that's where I'm going with all this. I know it's been 10 minutes of me babbling on about sports, but it's the addiction part of it. When I find something that I enjoy, I don't just like it. I'm addicted to it. It can be anything as simple as, a Mountain Dew or a certain sandwich, a certain drink, a certain way of doing things, a certain TV show. In my life, I've been addicted to a lot of things, some good, some not so good. When I was a teenager, I was addicted to substances that aren't exactly good for you. I changed that. I got away from that. But I replaced that with addiction with a different substance. I went to high caffeine, high sugar drinks. So I stopped drinking, but again, I replaced it with something that was not as quote unquote bad and not as illegal for a teenager to be drinking, but it was still something that's not great for me. And for the longest time, I drank so much caffeinated beverages, mostly Mountain Dew, that it became, if I didn't have it, my day was destroyed. But in the end, I went from alcohol, stronger drinks, to Mountain Dew. And then it took a doctor basically saying, you're killing yourself with caffeine and sugar. Now, you're drinking a lot of caffeine and sugar when the doctor's like, please, just stop. And so I got myself into seltzer water. First flavored seltzer water, then just plain seltzer water. But I'm addicted to that too, because now I drink more seltzer water than should be allowed. I probably drink maybe a gallon or 2 a day, which is a lot of seltzer water. And it's not cheap because I don't get the cheap stuff, which maybe is why, and another reason that I need to look at it. I used to watch sports a lot, but then I replaced it and I watched shows like 24 and 24 is a great show, but I would literally watch all the first season, all 24 episodes. Then before the next season came, I'd watch all season 1 again and then watch season 2. And then before season 3 came, I'd watch 1 and 2 and so on and so forth, to the point where my kids picked up on it and they knew what I was going to do. It's just a continuation. Now, in 2021, we binge everything. We watch all of something. Like my wife and I watched so many TV shows in the last year because of COVID. Everything from, The Good Place to we're watching The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, Westworld, anything you can think of that has a season or more, we've probably either watched or thought about watching. And that's because we don't know what else to do with our time right now. Because we're addicted to watching things from beginning, middle to end. And I don't know if you guys are like this. But we watched Game of Thrones and we watched all the episodes and it took us not that long to do it. And we only watched it like Saturday nights, sometimes Sunday nights, maybe once other during the week. We watch 1 or 2 episodes. But if you continually do 2 or 3, 4 episodes, you finish 100 episodes really, really fast. My addiction problem even goes to my children. I'm addicted to spending time with my kids to the point where sometimes it's become unhealthy. And they've said stuff and I don't think they've said it meanly, but I've taken it meanly. I do kind of want all their attention when I'm near them. I want to be the most important thing. And if they're adults, that's not their job. My daughters, their husbands should be more important than me. My sons, their wives should be more important than me. Their children should be more important than me. Their children, I want their children to think I'm the most important thing when it should be their parents. And these are the things I'm working on. Because when I get addicted to these things, when I get addicted to the endorphins of feeling special, or a sporting event that makes me feel good, or a TV show that makes me feel good, or a beverage that makes me feel good, or a food that makes me feel good, I don't just have a piece or one show. I will stay up and do it all. If I didn't have my wife to stop me, I would probably do it all twice. I would just keep going until exhaustion hit. Even with my food choices, my seltzer water, I can drink 3 or 4 40-ounce bottles and think to myself, I can do another one before bed. Why not? I'm a little thirsty. It's crazy. I have green seltzer water bottles all over my house. Not because, I don't pick up. It's because I drink so many, I can't keep up with the amount that I drink. The puppy we have, who's a year old now, so I guess he's kind of still a puppy, but not. He takes my bottles and steals them when they're empty because he loves playing with them. But there's so many of them, he never runs out of new bottles to play with. And that's because I can't, I have a hard time saying no. Same thing goes with my love life. Same thing goes with work life. When I work, if I like the job, if I love the job, I will work at it way past the point of exhaustion. My legs will be giving out. My head will be throbbing. My eyesight will be blurry. My back will be throbbing. And I'll be like, oh, I can do one more thing. And that's not right. That's not how you should be living your life. You should work to supply your needs to live a good and healthy life. You're not working to work. You're not living to work. You're working to live, I think is the old saying. But what's worse than my work addiction is my love life addiction. Now, I have never cheated on my wife. I have never been married to her and said I love you to another woman. I've never done any of that. But I'll tell you, it's hard for me because I have an addiction to my wife. I want her to spend all of her time with me. And when she doesn't, I always start second guessing myself. Does she love me now? Does she hate me now? Does she love me now? Does she hate me now? Does she want me? Does she not want me? Am I ugly? Am I disgusting? Am I disturbing? Am I happy? Am I sad because she loves me or she doesn't love me? And that's something I've always struggled with. And it's because the feeling I have when we're on, when we're in sync, is so addicting. I don't want to give it up. I never want to do something different because if I do something different, it could change the feeling I get when I'm around her. So it makes it hard for me because I can't always do the same thing. If I go out and we go out and get her a new car, I can't get her a new car every day. If we go out and we go out to a nice dinner and we go to a movie and that feeling is amazing, we can't do that every day. It's not feasible for a normal person to buy a new car, to go out to dinner, or to do a fabulous date, or to go to Brazil, or any of this craziness all the time. They're special events because they're special events that don't happen that often. If I took my wife to Brazil every couple weeks, it wouldn't be special. It would just be another trip to Brazil. If I did all this stuff all the time that made my wife quote unquote happy all the time, it loses its magic. But I still want that. So sometimes I stupidly think, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll make it work this time. I'll do this, and then this will happen, and then she'll be happy. And if you've ever dealt with anybody with an addiction problem, now I know my addictions aren't the same as everybody. I'm not saying they are. But if you've ever dealt with anybody with an addiction problem, you understand that it's the next fix. When can they get the next fix? When can they get more of the things that give them that feel, that kick, that happiness, that joy, that fix, right? The problem is there's never enough of the next fix to take care of it. And what I've been realizing more and more is no matter how much Lynn gives me, no matter how much she loves me and cares about me and supports me and deals with my craziness, that isn't going to be enough for tomorrow or the next day or the next day. She would have to physically, mentally, and spiritually, wholeheartedly, she would have to give me 300% of herself every day for a while, and then that would wear out. She cannot fix my addiction and my problems with it. And that's where I've come to grips with today is I've realized that Lynn is not the problem. Mountain Dew, not the problem. Seltzer water, not the problem. It's not work. It's not church. It's not a sporting event. It's none of that. What it is me being willing to say, I've had enough today and to be okay with it. And that's a struggle that I feel is going to be a long-term thing for me. I do not feel, and maybe I'll be wrong, and I hope I am, I do not feel like tomorrow I can wake up and say, today I'm just going to be a normal husband, doing normal day activities, and I'll be okay with whatever happens. I just don't see myself doing that. I don't see myself just waking up one day and being content. I really think it's going to take a while. And here's the struggle with that. And this is how deep my problems go. I get addicted to trying to fix my problems. I get addicted to trying to figure out new, innovative ways to deal with my stress and anxiety. This podcast actually is part of it. This podcast is about me figuring out ways to deal with certain things. So my wife and I joke about the podcast and why I'm actually doing it. And she used to say, well, it's just because you talk so much and talk to somebody else and, talk about your mind and your problems and let other people listen to it. And that's what we joke about. But really, this is about me learning to talk to other people. And I don't have to see your faces. Some of you I know are listening that I've known you or you know me. And that's great. More scary, actually. But it's just putting my voice out there and getting things that is on my mind off of it. I'm addicted to things. I used to be addicted to being, super healthy. Then I was addicted to not being healthy. Then so now my push is to work on not being addicted, but being normal. Being okay with mediocre, and it sounds horrible. Being okay with mediocre. Being okay with okay. Not having a struggle because I can't fix the world's problems. Not having a struggle because, I don't know everything. Or struggling because I like this and they don't have any left and people don't understand my pain. And a lot of it is being okay with being okay. And though it sounds really easy, and it really does, it's not. I've never been okay with being okay. I've always struggled with being a kid who's, quote unquote middle child. I've always struggled with being the kid that doesn't have a lot of friends because, well, he's a little weird. And again, I've got to be okay with that. I have friends now. I always joke that I don't. I have people who care about me. Not just my children, not just my wife, actual people who don't have to do it, but want to do it. I have people in this world who actually want to be part of my life. And I've got to be okay with that. I've got to be okay with people actually caring about me. I joke because where I work right now, because I'm not teaching, the store owner keeps saying things like, you're helping out a lot. Thanks so much. And it's so hard for me to say, you're welcome. Because I don't feel like I'm doing anything productive. I feel like I'm more of a pain in the butt than I am a helper. He's like, no, man, you have no idea how much help you are. And I think to myself, by doing what? Understanding computer, computer language and how to file stuff. That's not that big of a deal. But it is. It's a big deal because he doesn't know how to do it. And I do. I know how to do it. I know how to do it, and I know how to process things, and I'm pretty damn good at it. I'm good at it, and I should be okay with being good at it. When I do stuff, certain locations, I'm like, I'll just do this, and this. People look at me like I'm crazy. That's just how I see things. It's that easy for me. But then I always go, well, it's not that hard. It's just that I've done it more than you. Some of that is I've done it more than them. But some of it is just I know it. And I've always been so nervous about taking credit for knowing it. It's okay if I know that. It's okay to be okay. It's okay to be good at something. And not like sometimes you're talking like, oh my God, you're so cocky. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it's okay for me to say, hey, I know how to fix this problem. I fixed it. Someone says thank you. And I say, you know what? You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. Instead of just going, well, it's not that big of a deal. Everyone knows it's pretty easy. It's just I've done it more. Just take the credit and be okay with it. So this all started with sporting events, right? Sports. The things that, I'll be honest, I'm better at being addicted at than I used to be, but I still watch a lot of sports. Not as much as others, not as much as people I know, but still a lot. It does take a lot of my time, mostly on Sundays. But I'm okay with missing some of it now. It also is talking about my addiction. And I've really noticed my addiction coming out with sports. And then it started trickling down to, well, it's also this, and it's also this, and it's also this. And now that I know these problems, and I know that they're real problems, they're not like, well, I think I might have, no, I do. I know what it is. I need to fix it. I know what I need to fix it. It's going to take time, but I also know that I can do this, and I will do this because it's what's healthiest for me, for my family, for my kids, my grandkids, someday my great-grandkids, and so on and so forth. And I'm happy that at least I have a life today that I can do this, and I have the opportunity to be better. So thank you for listening. Sorry again I was late. This was actually a big deal to me. It was bothering me a lot because I was late. But again, this is something new. I've got to be okay with being late. No one is dying if I don't play this for, an extra day and a half. Thank you all for listening, and have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next week.